Hey toy fans, Rob here, and check out all this stuff we've got going on. We better get this started from the top. Alright toy fans, D21 Beast Rob here, and I thought we'd go ahead and do a haul video. It's been a couple of months since I've shared my wares with you guys. I picked up some Marvel Legends, some Minimates, even some trade paperback graphic novels, and some of these things I picked up on my own, some of them I've got some very generous help with, but I thought we'd go ahead and just take some time to go through all of them together. Now as you guys can see here, these are some of the Marvel Legends I picked up. I did get Nighthawk, and I got Nova. These were actually part of a GameStop sale. It was a buy one, get one free on clearance items. Both of these figures were free. Actually, no, this was the buy one, get two free, which was an amazing sale. I picked up the Sam Alexander Nova for myself, and Nighthawk, I didn't already have those figures. My son actually got the Star-Lord from this wave, which he was pretty excited about. Star-Lord didn't actually come with any Build-A-Figure pieces, and I wasn't sad to see him go. But with all of these figures now, I've picked up the Drax already, and the Angela, and a few others from the wave. I'm only missing Vance Astro to be able to finally finish the Titus Build-A-Figure. Not a Build-A-Figure I was crazy about, but since I'm this close, I'm kind of getting excited about finishing him off. But I am really excited to get Sam Alexander. I like the all-new Avengers. I didn't initially like this Sam Alexander Nova, but as I've read a couple of comics, I've come to grow into enjoying him. Nighthawk, on the other hand, is a character I haven't seen a lot of lately, but I did enjoy the New Warriors comics of the 90s, so I'm looking forward to getting that figure and adding him to my collection. Also, when I did my recent Star Trek video, when I went to, what was it? The city in Iowa, Riverside. When I went to Riverside, Iowa, I found a Walgreens on the way that had the Human Torch Walgreens exclusive Marvel Legends figure. Still no sign of this guy in my area. In fact, it took forever to get Sue Storms locally, and only just now am I starting to see Medusas. Still no Human Torches, so glad that I went on a road trip and was able to find him. Excited to be able to get the Fantastic Four completed, at least the Hasbro version. I've got a set of Toy Biz figures. We'll go ahead and set this guy over here. And then recently I was shopping at a Five Below. It's a new store for me. I didn't really know about it until this year, I guess, when one kind of moved into my area. They haven't had Marvel Legends before. This is the first time I've ever seen them there, and they had the entire Red Onslaught wave. You guys may remember back when I was doing reviews more frequently, I picked up a lot of figures from the Onslaught wave, but I didn't get the Taskmaster figure because I didn't really care for that particular look for the character. I know it comes from the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon, but it wasn't how I saw Taskmaster, so I saw him as kind of a skip, and he came with the Red Skull head for Red Onslaught. And as much as I loved Uncanny Avengers, the comic book series, I really didn't like the Red Onslaught character, and I only cared about getting his body parts so I could eventually get the Magneto head down the line with the X-Men Juggernaut Build-A-Figure wave and have the proper Red Onslaught. But since this guy was $5 at Five Below, I figured, how can I skip out? So glad to get him in my collection. I know Dan from Toy Galaxy has spoken about that figure several times, talking about how great it is, so I hope to enjoy it just as much. And then I have to give a big thank you to Ryan, a good friend of mine, who's helped my collection along before. He managed to find a Blade for me out in the wild. I still haven't really seen this character in my area. Some of the Man-Thing wave figures have trickled in here and there. Blade's one of the harder ones to come by, but with this figure and the Netflix characters I showed off in my last haul video, I'm now 2 figures away from having the rest of Man-Thing. I still need Bullseye and I still need Netflix Elektra, and it looks like Netflix Elektra, despite my I don't really care for that character design. I thought she looked better in Defenders, but she seems to be pretty popular. I'm not really seeing her anywhere, and I'm starting to worry that if I don't grab her the next time I see her, I may miss out altogether. But a great inclusion, and thank you much, Ryan, for going ahead and adding that to my collection. I'm probably going to go ahead and do a minute review of this guy later today, so let me go ahead and set him aside for the moment. But as I said, this isn't all I have to show off today. I also have some Hascon exclusives. Now, the first ones I want to share with you guys are these Minimate figures, and I have to give a special thanks to Tommy for helping me out with these. I've got the Civil Warrior, and I've got Guillotine. Now, both of these characters, the inspiration for these was drawn from the mobile game Marvel, not Future Fight, Champion of Heroes, I believe that's what it's called. I actually used to play that game, but I kind of fell out of it. Great looking minifigures. I'll be honest, I don't care much for Civil Warrior, but it's probably because I don't know anything about him. But this Guillotine is actually a really sweet looking minifigure. I'm very glad, very fortunate, and very lucky that I had a good friend who was able to send these to me. But these weren't the only Hascon exclusives that I had sent my way. I also was lucky enough to receive an empty box. Nah, I'm just kidding. I actually got the X-Force Deadpool from Hascon. Bear with me here as I pull them up. a pretty great rendition of the Uncanny X-Force version of Deadpool. It does appear to be the Bucky Cap mold, the same one that we saw on the Juggernaut Wave Deadpool figure, although this Deadpool is still rocking those somewhat small feet that are standard on the Bucky Cap mold. I do prefer the buckled feet of the other Deadpool figure off to the left. Come on, man, stand up here. Little feet can always be a problem. So you can see here, though, that these are largely the same figures, but with Deadpool, they did remove the Marvel Now styled shin guards and arm guards that Deadpool figure has, and they did make him look more comic accurate. He's a bit different, actually, from the original X-Force Deadpool that we received a few years back. I actually managed to pick this guy up. The one time I was lucky enough to go to San Diego Comic-Con, there was a vendor who was selling a bunch of these gray Deadpool. So I got him, I think, for about 20 bucks, which I was surprised by. I thought he was going to try to overcharge me. But you'll notice that he's got much more of the Cable and Deadpool style belt on his torso because, of course, that was originally a red Deadpool figure. So with this new gray Deadpool figure, he looks much more like he did in the comics. More modern, I guess you could say, than this early 2000s look. Now, it's also worth noting that this Deadpool had some paint shading on his body, which I thought was a nice touch. We're not getting that with this newer Deadpool figure. Now, I don't know, I was never lucky enough to get the Uncanny X-Force Box Set from San Diego Comic-Con. This is a lighter toned gray, so I'm hoping that this figure matches perfectly with the Wolverine, Archangel, and Psylocke that came with that set. But I may never be able to prove that. If you guys happen to have all four of those figures, let me know how the grays match up. I can tell you, even though I don't have them out for this video, the X-Force Wolverine that I do have and the Thunderbird that was part of a Toys R Us 2-pack with the original red Deadpool, those guys have a much more metallic looking silver paint to them, I believe because they were supposed to just represent the X-Force comic. I'll put the cover up here on the screen. They were just referencing the adjectiveless X-Force comic that was done by Yost, I want to say. Yost and Kyle probably wrote that with Clayton Crane doing the art, at least initially. So it did kind of reflect that art style. So, this Deadpool was never really able to fit in with those figures, even though it was cool to have an X-Force setup. I don't imagine this guy's going to match as well either, but I still love having this Deadpool figure, and there's some cool things that they've done with him. One of the things I think is hilarious is that his sidearm happens to be blue, and I'm wondering if this is meant to be a Nerf gun or a squirt gun, but it's just this blue plastic gun that has an orange tip on it. And unfortunately, the orange appears to have not been dry yet when they first stuck it into the holster. The first time I pulled this weapon out, it was already kind of worn. So, and I've seen that's been a problem with some other people collecting this figure online. But it's still hilarious to have fun with the Deadpool figure, and he's got a lot of the same accessories that the red Deadpool came with, but we see things like paint variation on the weapons. Like, here's the railgun that the red Deadpool came with. It was all in silver plastic, and the X-Force Deadpool's got black plastic base with sort of a, I don't know what you want to call that, a reddish-brown paint that's been applied on the top and the bottom of the weapon. And we're seeing the same thing with his sidearms, or his pistols, I guess you can call them. They're a little comic book looking, but since we're talking about Deadpool here, I don't think that's as offensive. But we have these guns here that are, again, a black base plastic with orange painted on top. These guns have a bit of a wide handle. They're a little difficult to get into Deadpool's hands, but it's nice to have some weapon variation with this exclusive. He also has the standard Deadpool head. It looks very similar to the one that we got with the Juggernaut Build-A-Figure Wave. I don't detect a major difference in paint on this one. And then we also have a bazooka, like we saw with the other Deadpool. This one, instead of having the boxing glove, has one of those repulsor effects from the Civil War box set that Iron Man came with. We're also seeing that it says boom with the Deadpool O's in the center there. And finally, he's got the same Bucky Cap knife that the red Deadpool came with as well, and he's got a place to store that. So that's my entire Marvel Legends haul and Hascon haul. I also was able to get some graphic novels recently. I picked up the Batman and Ninja Turtles crossover comic a couple years ago, about a year and a half ago when I still lived in Kentucky. I actually picked up the first issue of this comic and I enjoyed it, but I moved and never managed to finish the miniseries, so I'm glad to finally have this whole thing collected. I'm working my way through it right now, but I love that I picked this up around the same time that they announced the Ninja Turtles were coming to Injustice 2. So I'm hoping that this book is referenced, as it rightly should be, when those characters meet up, the Gotham characters and the Ninja Turtle characters in the DLC. They'll probably be coming to that game in early 2018, if I had to guess. I'll bet those guys will be the last of the DLC fighter packs, which means it may be February before we get to play them. But it should still be pretty fun, and I'm really hoping we get some story crossover there. Also, I finally picked up the Guardian Devil story. This is an older Daredevil story from the early 2000s, written by Kevin Smith. I believe after this particular tale is when Bendis and Alex Maleev took over and kept the run going until Brubaker took over, and possibly Michael Lark. I forget what artist was teamed with Brubaker. I'm working through this one as well. This, of course, features the famous Karen Page story. I don't know if I should spoil that for you guys or not, but there's a storyline in here that I expect to come up at some point in Netflix Daredevil. So it's fun to go ahead and read through that. Art on that was done by Joe Quesada. It's interesting, too, if you look through that. I guess I should pull that back up here. It's interesting to see how art styles have changed over the years. You'll notice particular characters in here. I don't know. I just feel like they look a little more cartoony, or a little more almost like a Disney afternoon cartoon, especially with characters like this guy here, than we're used to seeing in comics these days. So, nice bit of a throwback there, but it's also kind of interesting to see how art styles in comics have changed over the years. A couple more things that I was able to pick up when I was on that same road trip to Riverside, Iowa. I picked up this Captain Picard Mega Constructs minifigure. There's also a Borg that's part of this same set, as well as an Aliens Colonial Marine and then just a Xenomorph. And then a He-Man and Skeletor. Some pretty interesting selections for these just one-off minifigures. I still plan on getting the Borg, but it's great to have the Captain Picard. I wish we'd be getting more of these because I loved the Mega Constructs Star Trek line. I've done a review of a few of these things, and I've got a few more that you guys haven't yet seen on camera. And it would just be fun to have a full set of figures. But anyway, so I had to add that to my collection, being a fan of Star Trek as I am. Go ahead and just set that off to the side. And I picked up, after the Spider-Man Homecoming Blu-ray came out, I decided to go ahead and finally pick up the Homemade Costume and Vulture Minimate 2-pack. This is a pretty cool looking box set. I've seen pictures of the Vulture outside of the box. We might even go ahead and flash to that here in a minute. We'll look at all of these Minimates together. How about that? But the wing set for this Vulture is just monstrous. I'm really excited to check this guy out outside of the packaging, and I may still go ahead and pick up the Foggy and the Mark 47 armor. Don't care for the armor as much, but it'd be great. I said Foggy. He was Foggy in Daredevil. I want to pick up the Happy Hogan Minimate figure. I like Jon Favreau, his role that he plays in these movies. So that'll be a fun one to potentially add, but I'm looking forward to getting those guys out of the box. And last but not least, we do have... this is sort of just a trade, I guess, of my son. He had the Batroc Marvel Legends figure, and he didn't really know who the character was. He didn't care about him at all. We're about to move again, and he decided he was done with them, so I managed to get Batroc added to my collection. So that's pretty awesome. But why don't we go ahead and clear things out, and we'll take a closer look at those Minimate figures. Holy smokes, toy fans, check out these Minimates. We'll start with the Hascon exclusives. We have the Civil Warrior here. Does appear to just be a Captain America Iron Man type figure. He's decoed all the way around, and he does have a separate piece for the shoulders, which does appear to be a reused Iron Man sort of upper torso shoulder piece. He's got this shield with the arc reactor deco on it. On the inside, there is actually a ring that comes off of the shield. Now, typically with these Minimate shields, they have just an open hole inside of them. It looks like that this ring that holds the shield on has actually been permanently glued inside that shield, which I guess makes sense since we don't have to worry about having the shield needing to be attached to the back, but I would have liked the option, I guess, to not have to have that ring stuck around and plugged into the shield piece itself. Typically, Minimate shields just have that hole, so it's, you know, great for what it is. The deco's all there. It's all clean, that near as I can tell. No major complaints, but of the four we're looking at right now, this is probably my least favorite. We'll go ahead and set him off to the back here. We also have Guillotine. Now, Guillotine looks fantastic. One issue we have, I'll discuss there with the sword. But the hairpiece rather looks nice. The face is clean. Lots of great detail on the torso. The figure's articulation is a bit inhibited by this rather thick cape design. We've seen this sort of cape used before on Doctor Doom and other sort of caped figures like this. But I really do just like the look of the character. My only real drawback with her is that the sword has a handle that is much too large for a standard Minimate hand. You can see how big the opening is in that hand right there. This sword handle, once you kind of squeeze it in there, it actually ends up spreading the hand pretty wide apart. She'll hold it, but not as comfortably or as tightly as I would have liked. It doesn't go all the way back into the fulcrum, and it does just start to stretch out the fingers. If you leave this sword in that hand for very long, you're going to have a deformed Minimate hand. So a bit of a disappointment. I would have liked if they'd done some sort of waist piece so you can like stick her sword in a belt loop or something like that. I probably won't have her displayed holding the sword, But as it stands, accessory aside, it is a pretty fun and great looking exclusive. Also, weirdly, her display stand has some red paint that's just kind of streaked on it. Never seen that before on the Minimate stands. They're usually pretty clean, so I guess it's because she was poly-bagged versus carded that ended up happening. But still, a great looking piece nonetheless. And if you're a fan of the Marvel Contest of Champions game, you'll probably be a big fan of that Minimate as well. But now let's get to the Spider-Man Homecoming Minimate figures. Starting with the Come on, Spider-Man figure. We've got the homemade suit Spidey. No interchangeable Peter Parker head. That would have been nice, I think, to have, especially considering that we see this costume unmasked in the movie. That would have been great if we had some sort of beaten up, wet-looking Parker head. I think that would have been great. But otherwise, this is just a fun-looking minifigure. All the proper details there. Maybe you could have used some detail on the back, but really not necessary. And articulation is slightly limited by this hood piece that we've seen with Spider-Gwen and other characters that use, hoodie pieces in the past. But really, big fan. The white, I've seen on Spider-Man figures before that you can see the red through the white of the eyes. Not as bad on this figure, so that was a nice touch. And he also comes with this webbing accessory. And this webbing looks a little different than what we're used to with Minimate figures. They must have gone back and redesigned the web accessory. Typically, the webbing is a lot thicker. This is a thinner web. It's still coiled up, and you'll have to stretch it out and hold it for a little bit. It seems to be the same length that I can remember. But, not usually something you pose your Spider-Man Mini-Ace with just because this whole coil thing kind of gets in the way. It's still nice to have the option. But then let's talk Vulture. This is a crowning achievement for Diamond Select. The wingspan on this guy is enormous, as you can see. He's also got separate pieces on his legs that kind of create the look of those leg harnesses from the movie. He's got the hand pieces here. We don't have any standard hands that don't have the flight controls attached to them, but I guess you can just sub in your own black gloved hands if you want to. The wings are not permanently attached to the figure. They do just attach via 2 pegs. And these things, you got to look at these again. Look at all the paint detail and sculpting on these things. They actually have a little bit of weight to them, which makes them a little difficult to stand on his display stand. He comes with one of those standard pull flight stands versus one of the ones that has kind of the swooshing action on it. You do have to kind of finagle him a little bit to get him balanced out on this flight stand. So yeah, those wings do add a bit of extra weight. He doesn't come with a standard Minimate display stand, just one of these clear plastic discs. But he does have the ability to take his helmet off. And if we do that, there's actually a surprisingly good likeness to Michael Keaton. I'm very impressed. Great looking face detail there. And we do get a hairpiece that we can stick on his head, as you can see here. And this might be a brand new hairpiece. I can't recall where I've seen something quite like this before. So, but still a great looking figure. Man, look at that. He looks just like Keaton. I love it. If I get a Batman figure, maybe it's worth buying another Vulture so I can throw that face on there. But yeah, great looking Minimate figure. Very, very happy. Let's go ahead and pull off the head really fast and the jacket and just see if they've done some detail underneath. They have not. No biggie. I could definitely tell where the budget went on this figure, and I'm very happy with the result. So, overall, a great set of Minimates. If I had to rank them, I would definitely say Vulture's #1. I would do Homemade Suit Spidey #2, Guillotine, and then the Civil Warrior. But hey, that's my haul for today, guys. Thanks for joining me. Did you guys have a favorite from this set? What stuff have you picked up recently? Let me know in the comments below. I want to give another quick shout out to Ryan. Thank you so much for the Blade figure. And Tommy, thank you very much for these Hascon exclusives we've looked at today. You guys can always keep up with me on Twitter and Instagram at D21Beast, and I'll see you guys next time.